Welcome to this webinar where we will be addressing assistive technology tools to support students with disabilities during distance learning, virtual learning. And this is the first in a series of three. With us this morning is myself, Edna Ellis. I'm an occupational therapist and an assistive technology specialist working for the Hyatt team. And we also have Alice.
Yes, Alice Wright. I'm a special educator. I'm also on the Hyatt team, assistive technology team. Welcome, everyone.
So just to frame this presentation a little bit, we are going to introduce you to some general technology tools that will support your students during this virtual learning. But we wanted just to introduce it by saying that MCPS is very committed. We work very hard on selecting and offering our students assistive technology tools that will support their learning. And we're going to give you today just a broad overview of some options that support your students who have IEPs or 504 plans. First of all, a definition, because the word assistive technology is used a lot out there with regard to what it actually means. As opposed to what instructional technology means, we're going to frame it as instructional technology is technology that's just being used for instruction, for learning. And right now we're using Zoom and we're using Google Slides, and they're both instructional technologies. They're used in the classroom all the time right now. When something that is instructional technology becomes assistive technology, it is something that the student is dependent on to be able to access the curriculum. So it's a piece of equipment or a program or a system that's used to increase, maintain, or improve the functional capabilities of persons with disabilities. If we take it away, they will not be able to either access learning or demonstrate what they know. And this is just a visual of what that might look like. So again, we use instructional technology all the time. Assistive technology less so, because many of our students are doing just fine using the instructional technology offered. But if you think about a classroom where a student struggles, for example, to decode, but they understand text once they hear it, and the teacher offers text to speech as a general tool for all students, the student who needs it to read looks less obvious because they just look like every other student. And that concept of offering tools that are good for everybody, but essential for some people, is the idea of universal design for learning. You offer it for everybody. The students who need it use it. The students who like it also use it. But the students who need it, for them, it is assistive technology. So for this session, this is one of three, we're going to provide an overview of tools for, again, students with IEPs or 504s. And we'll just try and address some of the common questions that come up as we use these presentations in MCPS. And so just in terms of the presentation and your student, while we are presenting these tools, think about your student and the needs that they present, because we're always very cognizant of the right tool match for the need presented. So as we go through, we'll talk about the tool and we'll talk about some of the needs that they match, and you may or may not recognize these needs in your own student. So the first thing we're going to talk about is accessibility features built in the Chromebooks that every student with a Chromebook has access to. And to delve into that in a little more depth, I'm going to throw it over to Alice.
Yes, so all our students have Chromebooks. They may have a touchscreen Chromebook or a non-touchscreen Chromebook, depending on whether they're secondary students or elementary students, but they all work the same way. To find the accessibility features in your Chromebook, you want to click on the accessibility feature within the system tray. So I have an image here that shows you on the gear that you're supposed to click on, and then you click on advanced, and then you're able to turn on accessibility. And later on in this webinar, I'll actually demonstrate how to access it on an actual Chromebook. In there, you're also going to end up clicking on Manage Accessibility Features, but you want to make sure that you turn it on in the system tray, so the system menu. So the button, that's the blue button that you see there, you're going to click on that to turn that on, and then click on Manage Accessibility Features. In there, there's an array of things you can turn on. One of the features that you can turn on which is common for a lot of our students, is the enable dictation, which is speak to type. So you can turn that on. There are toggle buttons that you use. And so when it's blue, it's on, and when it's white grayish, that's when it's off. And there are different features on there that you can use if you have students who have difficulty with the keyboard and keys. You can turn on the sticky keys. You can turn on how to highlight the object that you're focusing on. So there are different things there that can help a student manage their needs. The other feature that you can turn on is using your cursor in a different way. So you can make your cursor larger. You can turn that feature on. You can also turn on a different color. It defaults to black, but there are a variety of colors that they have now on the Chromebook that can make the cursor more noticeable to the student while they're navigating on the Chromebook. We have, for our students who may have some hearing needs, they can turn on the captions in general in their Chromebook, and they can also turn on different ways to hear sound when they start up their Chromebook, so they know that they've accessed whatever it is they need to access. So these are features for students who may have some hearing needs. To be able to do that, once you've turned on accessibility features on the system tray, when you're in the Chromebook, you're able to see it and show it on the whole time. So that's the reason why we have you turn that accessibility feature on, and you're able to see how that works. So I'm going to demonstrate that in a moment on the Chromebook. And once you see it in the system tray, you're going to see the little accessibility man has his arms out. It's in red on the screen, and you can also turn on, if your student has vision needs, a full screen magnifier or the docked magnifier, which is also there. And there are also keyboard shortcuts that students can use to turn them on, and I have them on the tray as well, on the slide as well, for you to use if your student likes keyboard shortcuts other than going through the system tray. The other thing about the Chromebooks is that you are able to flip it into different 360 rotation positions. So there are 4 modes that you can use. It can look like a traditional laptop, which I have right here. It can also look like this, where you have it. You can actually tent it or have it go like a stand, or you can have it look like a tablet. So you have 4 different positions you can have with your Chromebook that your student can be able to use depending on the needs of your student. And if a student also has difficulty using the trackpad, they could use a stylus with the ones if you have a touch screen. So that's another thing that you can request from your school if your student is having difficulty navigating with the trackpad that's on the Chromebook and you want a separate stylus. That's something you can use if you have a touchscreen Chromebook, which is usually available for students who are in elementary school. So now I'm in a Chromebook, and you'll notice that I have my system tray right here. So I click on my system tray, and I go to, if you don't have the accessibility button right here, you want to go to the gear, which is your settings. Click on Advanced, and then click on Accessibility. I have it in the system tray, so that's the reason why it's blue and it's on, it's toggled on, but yours may be off, and you want to make sure you click on it and it's blue. And once it's on, you are able to see it in the system tray, which is right here. While you're in here, you can go to Manage Accessibility, and you can turn on, like I have right here, Select to Speak. Select to Speak is the text-to-speech engine that's on the Chromebook, and we will talk about it a little bit more in another webinar where we're talking about how you meet the reading needs for your student. We have some display options here that I spoke about earlier. You can change it to a high contrast mode, and when you turn that on, you notice that it's changed color. It's now black background with a white text, and that sometimes is visually better for some students. Or you can use the full magnifier or the docked one. A lot of our students prefer the docked one because when they put their mouse where they need it to be, they can now see it bigger on the top part of the screen. So that is something that can be helpful when students have to read text on the screen and they have some vision needs. You can change, let me turn that back on just to show you. Oh, right, with the docked, when you put it on, you do have the option to change the level of magnification. It defaults to 4, but you can make it bigger or less to 2, okay? So those are options as well for your student to make a decision about how much magnification that they need. The other thing that you have on here is that you can turn on the on-screen keyboard. That's most useful for students who have a touch screen. And you can also turn on the dictation. So that's something else that a lot of our students use. So these are the places you're able to go when you're in setting. Once it's turned on, you can see it right here, and you get this overview. And you can see I have 2 things turned on right now, which is the Select to Speak and the dictation. There are some other options here that you can turn on and off, and take the time to play around with it and see which ones your student actually needs. The other one that I have on, since I do a lot of work on the Chromebook where I'm using Zoom and I'm sharing my screen, I tend to turn on the large cursor so that it is easy for someone to track if I'm moving around on my screen. So that's something that you can turn on. So that's what I did. If I went back to my settings, I can go down to where it says mouse, and you see how it's there to turn on, and I can make a decision about how large I want it. And I can also make a decision about the color. I happen to like magenta, so that's the color I used. So that's it in your Chromebook. You're able to make a lot of customizations on your Chromebook to support your student. You just need to go into the accessibility feature to customize it to meet the needs of your student.
Yep, I'm going to pick it up from there and show you some of the general features of the Read and Write for Google Toolbar. So I'm going to share my screen now. And I'm going to go back into present mode for a moment and just show you on the bottom of your screen, you can see an image of the entire Read and Write for Google Toolbar. All students with 504 plans, IEPs and ESOL students, grades 1 through 12 have access to this toolbar. And it's a little cluttered right here in the moment, and we're not going to go over all of these tools today. We will go over the tools targeted to reading in our next webinar and to writing in the following one, but I'm just going to show you some of the general tools today. To do that, I'm going to link to an article so that I can show you how they're used within a Google Doc, which is generally the place where our students are using these tools. It does work on the web too, but for this webinar, we're going to work in Google Doc. So I'm going to see, I have it up twice, see if my toolbar will pop down. So the toolbar,
maybe you can blow up your screen a little bit bigger.
Sure. Yeah, let me do that. Maybe 150.
Yes.
Let's see if that works. Okay, and I'll actually make it a large screen. So the toolbar as a rule looks a little like this. It sort of drops down, hovering, waiting to be used or not. And I can click it down and I can put it away. Sometimes if it doesn't pop down just a word to the Y's, you can find it in your extensions up here and you can click on it that way. So don't worry if you don't see it right away, because you can trigger it in a couple of ways. So I have it popped down, and the tools we're going to look at today are the dictionary tool, the masking tool, and the highlighting. So the first tool is the dictionary tool. If there's a word in my document that I'm not 100% sure what it means, I have two options to support my understanding, two dictionary options. So if I double click highlights a word, I can just highlight it with the cursor. And then I'm going to go to the picture dictionary, and it draws me a picture of a forest. So that would give me just a broad overview of what it means by forest. But then if I wanted to have an actual read or text explanation of what that word is, I will again have it highlighted. And now I'm going to go to the regular dictionary, and it gives me a text definition of the word forest, and it has text to speech. So if I wanted to select this so that I could have it read to me, I can click on the play button.
A large area of many trees grow.
And as you saw, it highlights as it reads, and that's a little preview of our next webinar where there's text to speech we can use more robustly for the entire document. But with regard to having a text explanation of a word, you have that option, and you have the picture option. So it's right in the document without having to go out into online dictionary, no breaks. You have that option right there for students who get stumbled over a word or two, and it really helps understanding the concept or the gestalt of the text when you can do that quickly. So the next thing I'm going to show you is for students who might need a little help targeting their reading or getting rid of extraneous pieces of information on the page, we can turn on the masking tool. And that's right here, screen mask. And when I turn it on, you can see that it sort of gives me this open bar with a black, darker background. And so I can really hone in on the actual line that I'm reading in the moment. And some of our students, again, who need extraneous information, just, not there, not distracting them, or just need to go through it very, very slowly with the ability to go line by line. This is very helpful for those students. I'm going to show you there is some flexibility in the settings if this is too dark for you, and it's kind of tricky to see because we have it triggered on right now, but I can change the opacity of the background. You can see that it's lighter or darker. I can change the background color or the reading color. I'll do that briefly. Some of these are quite strong, these colors, so I'm going to go back to black. Or the reading color I can change. Black and yellow is usually a high contrast and helps some of our students. So I'll go back to white. The reading light opacity you can change. You can see that white bar changing, and the last is the height. So we can open it up to more text available in that window or less. So that is the masking tool. And I'm going to turn it off by clicking anything that you see with an underline on this toolbar. It means it's triggered and it's on at the moment. So when I click on it again, or click on it here, it should turn it off. And I'm going to cancel my options there. So that's the masking tool. The last thing I'm going to demo today is the highlighting tool. So if I'm reading for content, and I want to take notes when I'm reading. So for example, if my teacher said to me, we're gonna take notes on the plot and the setting. And I'm not actually going to do that, but I'm going to demo how you would if that was the assignment. So I'm going to read this and say, I think that might be plot. So I'm going to highlight that first with my cursor, and then I'm going to lock it in with a color. So as I read, my plot is going to be green. And for me today, I'm going to have my setting as blue, and you can have a choice. Obviously, you can pick whatever highlight color you want. So as I read, I'm going to look down and see where would be setting. And let's say this would be setting. I'm going to highlight blue for setting. And I can keep going through and highlighting as I go. Again, I think it was green for plot. And then I might have something and say, that may or may not be plot or setting. It's something that I think I need to hold on to. I'm not quite sure. So I'm going to just put that in pink, my possibles. So however you're going to organize your notes, color code them. Just go through the page and collect notes as you go. And then with this tool here, which is collect highlights, I'm going to click on it, and I'll demo what it does. I think that's probably the best way to see. You can select all the colors, or you can deselect. For example, I believe I did not select yellow, so I could uncheck it or not. It just won't do it if there's no yellow highlights. So I'm going to leave it on for now and click OK. And then what happens is the Read and Write toolbar triggers a whole new document that's created with your highlights color coded. And for me, what I would suggest, although you work with your student, and we always like to customize this toolbar depending on needs, but for me, I might want to remember that I used blue for plot, and I used green for setting, and I used pink for maybes, because I wasn't quite sure. So that will help me remember what my thinking was and my color coding was. A couple more things to show you here. It does provide you with a link back to the original document, which is sort of important for some of our students with regard to where did I get this information from. And it also obviously identifies your .NET account because you're working on it in your Chrome account. But it doesn't interfere with your original document. It's still there with your highlights, so you have both available to you. That is, I'm going to go back to the presentation and just go through a couple of the slides to give you the picture representation of what we went through. There you can see we have a picture dictionary and the text dictionary. This time I selected the word molars, but just a quick review of what that would look like. And here is your masking tool visual that we went through. And here is your highlighting visual. On the left is the original document, and on the right is the document that was created after I collected my highlights using this collect highlights tool.
So Kami is a PDF reader that the MCPS has bought to use with instruction. So you're able, as your student gets a PDF file, they're able to use Kami. The teacher may even send a Kami link to the student to be able to open it, and they're able to write on a PDF file. So they can do their math worksheets or any kind of worksheets that are PDF file using the text entry box that's there. They can also do drawings as well if they need to. So they have a whole host of features within Kami that a student can use. And we'll talk more about some of those features in our next webinar. We have the one for text to speech, and we have the other webinar that addresses writing needs with speech to text and word prediction. So you'll find out some more information about how to use some of those tools in that particular webinar, but this is just a quick overview for you to know that your student is able to write on top of any of the PDF files that a teacher may give them if they open it up with their Kami app.
And just briefly to introduce Nearpod, again, this is an overview presentation. You may have heard the word Nearpod, and a lot of teachers are using it. It is a subscription that we've purchased for all MCPS teachers, and it is primarily an engagement tool. Again, quick overview. So it gives teachers the opportunity to have students participate in real time through things like showing them virtual reality, using polls, collaborate boards where students can actually enter some text and join in an online conversation. There's gaming and quizzes. So it's a little bit different when your student is in front of the screen and having a presentation provided to them than when they're having a presentation that has the opportunity to engage at various points within that presentation through those a variety of ways like collaborate, quiz, or polls. So if your student mentions the word Nearpod, just know that it is more of a collaborative opportunity for students to engage in learning, and all teachers have a subscription to Nearpod. And so for this morning, or whenever you're viewing this webinar, that's sort of the content that we put together to provide you with a quick overview and to just set us up for the next two presentations, which will very much target specific skill set. The next one is going to be on text-to-speech tools, largely within a variety of platforms that support reading. So that will be within My MCPS Classroom, within Google Docs, within Cami, within a variety of the platforms your student uses. And then moving on to the third one, where we will talk about more of the tools to support writing, largely speech-to-text and word prediction. So we'll look forward to joining you again for those 2 webinars very soon. And I think that is it for us for this webinar. So
Yes,
again,
it is.
yep, we will. So cheerio for me,
Thank you for watching.
and we'll see you soon.